In this next lesson, we're going to begin to talk about how to dress up the plan. This is very important because you will be judged based on your deliverables, and we're going to talk about the 2D and the 3D deliverables. You already should at this point have a plan that is much better looking than a CAD derived drawing, just from the spatial coloring and texturing as you work your surfaces. So I want you to think about something. These are actual recorded plats from the turn of last century. And so when you look at it, up until this point, all of those would have had to be hand drawn. These are recorded plats. And then we start looking into the automated year. So now we're into automated drafting, some hand drafting still left over by the mid-70s, but then it switches all into automated. And these are all recorded plats from these years. And so what you see is nothing has materially changed in 115 years, actually more than 115 years. So the public sees your work like this, and they're going to have an opinion about that. They don't understand this is difficult to read. There's no information here. What's the ratio of square footage to footprint, things that how efficient this plan is. Nothing here is really easily discernible from your clients or the public. So I got to ask you, who doesn't possess a color printer or plotter today? Who doesn't possess a screen with color? I mean, this is 115 years. And you got to ask yourself, is this really the best you could do? You are judged by your deliverables. And this plat here, what you're looking at is a recent plat, and it would be perfectly acceptable to give to a client or a city. There's something wrong with that. What we want you to do is to be able to, at similar prices, so you don't have to charge more, is to use LandMentor so that the public can see what the vision is, what will be built, even if it's a simple lot survey, because you want to elevate yourself above the competition. And if you use this like an extension to a CAD package, it's not going to do that. So we're going to talk about the finishing up or the makeup of the plan. So what I want you to do is open up beginning step 10, and your screen will look like this. We started out putting in a few lots in, and now you'll see we've got the buildings, we've got commercial area. So we kind of finished up the drawing itself, just the geometry, and the rendering is a byproduct. So what I'm going to have you do, once you pull that up, is you'll zoom out a little bit. You'll get the site a little bit less because we're going to create a border. And you'll see you should be on layer 24, which is the title block layer. And then if you're not, change it to layer 24. And then press in drafting rectangle. And what it's going to ask is a prompt will come up. And when you see this prompt, you'll type in 22 inches high by 33 width, and to make sure it takes the scale that was shown by and make it actually 22 by 33 inches and not 22 by 33 feet, you'll check the box that says entered inches will multiply by scale. And then when you press submit, what will happen is you'll end up with a 22 by 33 inch dotted line you move around, and you'll see it says 1 inch equals 60 feet. So that's where that scale comes in. Up until now you did nothing with the scale. So that's the first time the scales come into play. And like other routines, the buttons on the mouse, left sets it, middle buttons rotates it 1 degree at a time, and the right button sets at existing point, so don't do that. You want to set it at a graphic location. So once you set it, it will appear in like a dark brown or orangish, and that will show you that it's set. That is a polyline. It's the first polyline that we've created. And polylines are typically used in GIS and CAD, but they're very limited and needless extra data. So we want everything to be coordinate geometry based. So any polyline is not going to be used for coordinate geometry. So you can only perform areas on boundaries defined by lines and true curves. It's a safety for precision land surveying and platting needs. To use a polyline for geometry, it must be exploded. So what you would do is go edit, polylines, and there's a whole menu of options there, and one of them is to snap to it and then explode it. So we're going to zoom up on the lot area. And what we're going to do is a little trick in the software, because the homes are flat, there's no depth to the structures, so they have the same visual character as anything else. We're going to pop those out and give them some 3D effect on the 2D plan. So under surfaces, there's a thing called shadows. So we want to press the shadows button, and it's going to ask for the full or parcel shape name for shadow. Now these names of the surfaces, the shape of the surface, has to be on the fill list first. So it says shadows are on, and you'll type in house, or just part of the word house is HOU, but you got to be careful, because if those characters fit in another name, those will also appear. And then you'll hit submit, and everything with house will show up on the matching column on the left. So in this case, we just want to move all of them over to the right. So you press all, and then when you press done and then refresh the screen by Alt-Z, or just hit the top button, you'll see the homes have a slight shadow to them. So if you know the name house exists but doesn't appear on the shadow list, what's wrong? Again, it has to be in the fill list for this to work. On the fill list, there's a preset named shadow. Anything before that will cast a shadow over it. Anything after it won't. You select which surfaces will cast a shadow in the surfaces menu. To determine what's shown above and below, you might need to move some things about in the fill list. And again, the shadow settings are in the preferences. So when you look at miscellaneous, and then it'll show the angle, the size, the opaqueness, and you could just change that and experiment. Now let's talk about the real power of LandMentor, the intelligent surface reporting. So what we've got is we've got this plan that's not only embellished with beautiful colors and textures, it's laden with information. Laden with information that's precise to 22 decimal places. So what you're going to do is press report, and a main menu function comes up. And on the upper right, that allows you to query things just by clicking on them. And you'll be able to get areas, boundary, legal descriptions, and things like that. But those are single items. To take and then query by a name of a group, you'll hit query name, like all lots, all pavement, all open space, things like that. And that will give you the same information, but also is tied into market analysis, which is a capability of with LandMentor. Now, paint will paint. It works kind of like query name, but it will show you in different colors the results. For example, in query name, you can say which of the lots between 8,000 and 9,000 square foot. It will give you a list. Paint will show you that in a color you choose up on the screen. So paint is a graphic way of looking at query name. Green, that will give you all your impervious surfaces and give you environmental impact, which also can be charted. So charts is really the way you want to communicate with the public and the client. LCBS, those are codes from the APA. That's also built in, American Planning Association. Job cost, that requires you to go into the global preferences and start putting cost factors in. Actually, that also does landscape architecture into the naming and the data. So we're going to start out by pressing query click, and just clicking in areas that are colored. Now, in the lot, you wouldn't want to click inside the driveway or that darker green front, because that's what you're going to get. So now we're live with the software, not in PowerPoint. I'm going to show you a few things here. So if I go into query click and I want the house that's buried underneath all these rooms, I would use the right button. So right button says, okay, here's my house, and then I get information on the house and it highlights it. Legal description. If I want a legal description of lot 8, there's my legal description. If I want a legal description of the site, which is buried underneath all of this stuff, I would do legal description, and again, just the right click and then choose site, and that would be the legal description. So that's what these buttons are for. Displayed surface, smallest surface, not sure if you ever need that, but all surfaces you would use. So I'm going to hit report, and now I want to get a listing of all the lots. So I type in lot and then hit return, so they highlight in blue, so I make sure that I see what I want. And I'm just going to do the default, which is count and submit. So I've got total square footage of the lots, I've got average square footage, I've got 14 of them, and they're all closed. So that's pretty good. So now I'm going to do, let's see, the average 11,822. Well, how many of them are above or below that? So what I'm going to do is go query name lot, L-O-T, and then I'm going to do area only, and above 11,800. And put it in there, and we could see those are lots above 11,800. And also on a list, it'll tell you the smallest and the largest. And the way you'd use that is when you do lot, and then you do area only and submit, it will put them all in order of number. And then you'll say, oh, wait a second, minimum lot size 10,000 square feet. Hey, we meet them. But what if the minimum lot size is 10,500? Now you could do paint lot and then just a default color, and I want to see anything less than 10,500. And if the menu goes off the screen, you've got the scroll bar here, and then submit, and that's the illegal lot, lot 1. So you have to fix that. Green, what's that? Well, let's zoom out, and then we'll go into green and submit. And what happens is that the site's green, and then it's going to list every impervious surface, and you want to look at the drawing. Two things: look at the drawing, make sure it's everything that's impervious is filled in white. But wait a second, look at the list. Wall. Well, wall is inside the building, so wall shouldn't be impervious. So what you'll do is go into fill, and then look at the wall, go down the wall, and then make it, double click it and make it ignore, see? Okay, chart, green, submit, and everything that is on the list should be impervious, and we've got 29.29%. To communicate that properly, because those are a lot of numbers. Numbers scare people. You don't want to put numbers in the public meeting. Use environmental density. Use the default under charts. So we want to report chart environmental density submit, and that will be the impervious surfaces, the man-made items compared to the site. So at a public meeting, who cares about the numbers? In a public meeting, you say, hey, look at all the area of the site that's landscape. This is the man-made stuff. Obviously, we don't have very much impact on the site, or maybe it's 30% is a maximum impervious surface. You'll know that right away, and you'll have to make a change, or make some of the walks or something pervious, or do a better job at tapering your driveways. It will also show you a percentage of what takes the most area. So when you look at square footage to pavement, you know if you're out of whack or not. And a lot of that is taught in the higher level LandMentor systems. So chart, so you've got environmental density, that's the default, area pie, submit, and then you'll put, for example, all the pavement I want to figure out how they relate to themselves. So this is a chart of all the pavement, and these textures match the drawing. Another thing you could do is chart compared to a major area. So we want to see how much of the site is actually taken in the ponding, and we could see the ponding is 8.7% of the site, and then the numbers come off like that. Or you could put a bunch of things in there compared to a major area, and then you want to see what's the compared to the site is, and you can choose anything in there. What are your buildings? What are they a percentage of the total site? So this is the way, easy way you can communicate easy information with charts. So when we hit chart and environmental density and submit, it created a image file. Every time you do this, it creates an image file. So we could take that file, and I'm just going to zoom up an area. We could take that file, add image under edit. The bottom one is images, add image, and then beginning step 10, environmental density. It'll tell you what it is. I want to put it in the foreground, and you can see it's kind of big. So you'll hold the down arrow button down until it goes smaller. Or an easier way to handle this is just zoom up in an area, images, add image, instead of trying to zoom it down, zoom back up, and then bring that image in. And then later on, if you find you have to move it, see it's blocking that line, you could go images, move size image, and then you can move it and size it and move it someplace else on the plan where it's not so in your face. Job costs, again, we're not going to do that because you have to have preferences for that. Point numbers, elevations, descriptions are in this button. We're not going to do that. And basically, this is how easy it is to derive information from your plan.